Hey, what's going on everybody? It's your bro, hope you're doing well, and in this video we're going to create a game of Pong using JavaScript, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Alright, let's begin everybody. Let's create a div section to contain our game. Div, close it, the ID will be game container, we'll add a canvas, close it, the ID will be game board. I'll set a width and a height in line. The width will be 500. The height will be 500. We'll add a score. This will be another div section. ID equals score text. The initial text will be 0:0. Then a reset button. Button, close it. The ID is reset button. The text is reset. Cool, that's our HTML file. Let's head to our CSS style sheet. ID, game board, border, 3 pixels solid. Let's change our score text next. Score text. Pick a font family. Font family. Pick a font that you like. Then I'll add a backup. I'll change the font size to 100 pixels. That should be readable. Okay, let's work on the button. Reset button. I'll set a font of permanent marker. Then a backup of cursive. Font size 22 pixels. A width of 100 pixels. A height of 50 pixels, border 4 pixels solid, border radius 15 pixels, then cursor pointer. When we hover our cursor over this button, the cursor is now a pointer. Then let's center everything. I will select our game container, text, align, center. All right, there we go. So that's our CSS style sheet and our HTML file. Let's head to our JavaScript file. Let's declare all the constants first. Const game board equals document dot query selector. We are selecting our game board. Const context equals gameboard dot get context 2D. Context is what we draw on. Const score text equals document dot query selector. We are selecting the score text. I'm just gonna copy this. Then we have our reset button. ID is reset button. Let's store the game width within a variable. What's the size of our canvas? Const game width equals gameboard dot width attribute. Then we have height. Game height equals gameboard dot height. I'm only storing them within a variable so that they're accessible. Let's select some colors. Const board background. What color? I'll select forest green, kind of like it's a tennis court. Const paddle 1 color. What color would you like the first player to be? I'll pick light blue. Then paddle 2. Paddle 2 color. Player 2 will be red. If you want, you can add a border. Const paddle border equals black. Const ball color. I'll make this yellow like it's a tennis ball. Const ball border color. I'll pick black. So what do we want the size of the ball to be? I'll store that as a constant. Const ball radius. I'll set this to be 12.5. Then the full diameter is 25. Then our paddle speed. How far do we want our paddles to move when we press down on a button? Paddle speed equals 50. That's good enough. Feel free to change this number if you'd like. Now we have let interval ID, let ball speed. I'll set this to be 1. That will be the lowest speed. Then ball x and ball y, they will be coordinates. Let ball x equal. Initially, I'll place the ball right in the center of our game board. I will take game width divided by 2. Then ball y is going to be game height divided by 2. Let ball x direction. I'll set that to be 0. Ball x direction will be the direction in which the ball is headed on the x-axis. Then ball y direction. Let player 1 score equal 0. Let player 2 score equal 0. We'll define 2 paddle objects. Let paddle 1 equal, this paddle will have a width property of 25, a height of 100. These are in pixels. The starting x coordinate will be 0, all the way at the left border. Then y, 0. So this paddle will be in the top left corner initially. So let's copy this, paste it, change paddle 1 to paddle 2. The width and the height will be the same. I would like paddle 2 to be on the other side of my canvas. I will set x to equal game width. Then I'm going to subtract negative 25, whatever the width is. If I set x to be game width, the left border is going to be lined up with the right border of my game board. So I'm just going to shift it over by the width, 25 pixels, so that you can actually see it. Then y is game height minus the height of our paddle. And those are the 2 paddles. Let's add an event listener to the window to listen for key down events. Window.add event listener. We will listen for key down. Then we will invoke a change direction function. Let's add an event listener to our reset button. Reset button.add event listener. We are waiting for click, then invoke the reset game function. We'll still need to declare these 2 functions. When we would like to start our game, we'll invoke the game start function. Then we'll need to declare these functions. The first function is function game start. We'll fill these in momentarily. Function next tick. Function clear board. Function draw paddles. Function create ball. Function move ball. Function draw ball. Function check collision. Function change direction. Function update score. Function reset game. Okay, those are all the functions. Why don't we begin by drawing the paddles? We'll start with the easy stuff. So we will take our context, set the stroke style equal to the paddle border. Let's begin by drawing paddle 1. Context dot fill style equals paddle 1 color. Context fill rectangle. The first 2 arguments are the x and the y coordinate of the top left corner of the rectangle. That will be paddle1.x, then paddle1.y. The next 2 arguments are the width and the height of this rectangle. The width will be paddle1.width, then paddle1.height. To test this, I'm going to invoke draw paddles right after game start temporarily. Okay, there's our first paddle, but let's add a border. We can just copy this, paste it, change fill rect to stroke rect. Okay, there is our first paddle. Let's copy these 3 lines of code, paste it, change paddle 1 to paddle 2. And there's our second paddle. I'll eliminate this function call. Let's fill in game start. When we begin the game, what are we going to do? First, we'll create a ball, then invoke the next tick function. Let's fill in the next tick function. We will take our set interval ID, set this equal to set timeout method. We'll pass in a callback. Then we'll add a routine. What are all the things that we're gonna do? First, we will clear and redraw our board. Clear board, then draw paddles, move ball, draw ball. Draw ball is going to have 2 arguments, ball X, ball Y. And we should probably fill that in within the parameters. There. Then we will check collision, then invoke next tick for another round. I would like to repeat this routine every 10 milliseconds. That is the next tick function. Let's fill in the clear board function. All we're doing is redrawing our board. Let's take our context, set the fill style equal to the board background, context dot fill rect will begin in the top left corner, 0, 0. The width will be game width. The height will be game height. And that's our background. So that is the clear board function. We're redrawing our canvas. Let's head to the change direction function. This will be in charge of moving the paddles, but we'll need to know what key that we pressed. I'll store that as a constant. Key pressed equals our event dot key code. So we do have one parameter, that's event. So fill that in. Let's display whatever key pressed is. Console.log key pressed. W has a key code of 87, S is 83. The up arrow key is 38, the down arrow key is 40. So we can use that for something. Const paddle 1 up equals 87. Const paddle 1 down equals 83. Const paddle 2 up is 38. Const paddle 2 down is 40. Let's write a switch to look at key pressed. Switch, we're examining key pressed against many matching cases. The first case is paddle 1 up. If we press up, we will take paddle 1, access the Y property, minus equals our paddle speed. You could also think of paddle speed as paddle distance, how far we're going to move, then break. So we should be able to move up, but we can't move down. Paddle 1 down, the Y property of paddle 1 plus equals paddle speed. By pressing S, we can move down. By pressing W, we can move up. But currently, we're exiting the game board. Let's write an if statement to check that. If paddle 1 dot Y is greater than 0, then we will move. Then within the second case, paddle 1 down, we'll write another if statement. If the Y property of paddle 1 is greater than game height. Okay, now check this out. So we can't go above the border, but we can go below the border, up to a certain point. From game height, we need to subtract the height of our paddle. Game height minus paddle 1, access the height property. We cannot go above the game board or below. Okay, let's work on paddle 2. Case paddle 2 up. We'll check to see if paddle 2's Y property is greater than 0. Then we will take the y property of paddle2 minus equals the paddle speed. So we cannot move paddle2 above the game board. Then our last case is paddle2 down. Okay, let's copy what we have here within paddle1 down. Paste it, but change paddle1 to paddle2. The y property of paddle2 plus equals the paddle speed. With paddle2, we shouldn't be able to go below or above the game board. These paddles are complete. Let's close out of the change direction function. Let's work on the draw ball function. We'll take the context, set the fill style equal to the ball color. Context dot stroke style equals ball border color. We can set a line width if we'd like. Context dot line width equals to context begin path, context arc to draw a circle, ball x, ball y, then the radius, ball radius, 0, this is for radians, 2 times math.pi, context.stroke method, context.fill method. And there's our ball. Okay, that is the draw ball function. Let's head to the create ball function. When we create a new ball, let's set the ball speed equal to 1. Let's begin with the x-axis. If math.round math.random is equal to 1. This part of the condition will give us a random number between 0 and 1. If that number is 1, let's move to the right. If not, let's move to the left. So if we would like to move to the right, let's set ball x direction equal to 1. Else, ball x direction equals -1. We're moving to the left. Okay, let's copy these if-else statements. Then change ball x to ball y. Then when we create a new ball, we'll set it to be right in the middle. Set the ball x coordinate equal to game width divided by 2. Set the ball y coordinate to game height divided by 2. Then invoke the draw ball function. Pass in as arguments ball x, ball y. That's the create ball function. Then we need to move the ball. Ball x plus equals the ball's speed times the ball's direction, ball x direction. Then do the same thing with y. Ball y plus equals ball speed times ball y direction. So our ball should move in a random direction. Let's just test that by refreshing the page. So let's close out of the move ball function. Now we'll need to check collisions. Let's check to see if we hit the top border. If so, then we'll bounce off of it. If ball y is greater than or equal to 0 plus the ball radius. Remember, the center of the ball is where we place the x and y coordinates. So that's why we're adding the ball radius to account for that. If we touch the top border, let's change the y direction. Ball y direction times equals -1. That will reverse the direction. I'm just going to test that. So we should bounce off the top. Yeah. Let's check to see if we hit the bottom border. If ball y is greater than or equal to game height minus ball radius, then we will change direction. Okay, let's check that. Yep, we just bounced off the bottom. What if we touch the left border? If ball x is less than or equal to 0, let's update player 2 score. Player 2 score plus equals 1. We'll update the score. Create a new ball. Then return. Once we hit the left border, that should create a new ball. Yep, there it is. Okay, let's copy this if statement. if ball X is greater than or equal to game width. Then we will update player 1 score. When we hit the right border, that creates a new ball. Okay, now this is the tough part. We're going to bounce off the paddles. I'm going to maximize the screen. If ball X is less than or equal to, this is for paddle 1. Paddle 1, take the X property, plus paddle 1, access the width property, plus the ball radius on the X-axis. If so, let's check the Y-axis. If ball Y is greater than paddle 1, take the Y property, and ball Y is less than paddle 1 dot Y plus paddle 1 dot height. That means there's a collision. We'll take ball X direction, multiply this by -1. Hey, if you want for fun, you can increase the ball speed. Ball speed plus equals 1. Okay, we should be able to bounce off this paddle. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's do the same thing with the right paddle. So I'm going to copy this section, paste it, is greater than or equal to the X property of paddle 2 minus the ball radius. If ball Y is greater than the Y property of paddle 2 and ball Y is greater than the Y property of paddle 2 plus paddle 2's height. So we should be able to bounce off these paddles now. Then the ball speeds up. So we do have one situation where the ball might get stuck. Kind of like this. If that happens, I'm just going to push the ball out of the way and move it forward. Ball X equals paddle 1, take the X property, plus paddle 1 dot width plus ball radius. This is if ball gets stuck. This line of code helps prevent the ball from getting stuck within the paddle. This statement will be ball X equals paddle 2 dot X minus the ball radius. Okay, now let's update the score. Update score. This one's easy. Score text dot text content equals, I'll use a template literal, player 1 score colon player 2 score. So we should be able to keep track of the score. Okay, that's 1 and 1. Lastly, we have the reset button. Reset game. Player 1 score equals 0. Player 2 score equals 0. Let's reset these paddles. I'll just copy them, paste them, get rid of the let keyword. By setting the X and the Y coordinates, that will put them in their original positions. To demonstrate, I'll press reset and they go back to their respective corners. Ball X equals 0. Ball Y equals 0. Ball X direction equals 0. Ball Y direction equals 0. We'll update the score. We'll invoke the clear interval method, pass in our interval ID, then invoke game start again. Okay, we should be able to restart this game. Yeah, there we go. Well, okay then everybody, that is a game of Pong using JavaScript. If you would like a copy of this code, I'll post this in the comment section down below. Be sure to check the original playlist. And well, yeah, that's a game of Pong using JavaScript.